Hello, my name is Ruby Borchet, and this presentation, as shown in my first slide, is about motivation in organizations. This is the topic on Chapter 4 of our textbook, and I chose this topic because I am always fascinated with why people behave in particular ways and how these behaviors affect productivity in the workplace. Motivation is always an interesting topic, and in my second slide, you will see questions such as: are you happy with your work? Have you experienced some days at work that you feel you're just doing what you do just for the sake of doing it and you can't wait for the day to be done? What makes you get up in the morning to work? And how is the answer to these questions important for managers in relation to achieving organizational goal? All these are interesting questions pertaining to motivation, and I hope to be able to share with you this fascination about motivation, and I hope that in the end we all get to develop an in-depth understanding of why and how we motivate people in the workplace. Our textbook introduces Chapter 4 with an interesting discussion about the relationship between happiness and productivity in the workplace. It makes sense to say that happy people or happy workers perform well. If you are happy with your work, you enjoy every minute of it, and you tend to be more productive in your work. But is it really that happiness comes first and then productivity and not the other way around? Does productivity lead to satisfaction and happiness? When you are able to close, let's say, 3 sales in a week, don't you feel accomplished and happy? And don't you tend to do more? On my third slide, you will see what Paul Larson, a veteran of operations management, advises to companies. He said that companies should support their managers in their efforts to keep their teams fully engaged, because it is the engagement that provides the venues for achievement and recognition. In this presentation, I will share with you the following topic as listed on my fourth slide: the nature of motivation and its importance. Then I will discuss the different perspectives on motivation, from the historical perspective, the need-based perspective, the process-based perspective, and lastly, the learning-based perspective. In understanding the nature of motivation, the first step is knowing what motivation is. According to our textbook, and you will see that on the fifth slide, motivation is a set of forces that causes people to engage in one behavior rather than some alternative behavior. And motivation is important in an organization in order for us to achieve a high level of work performance. And of course, work performance is dependent to ability of the workers, the environment, and of course the motivation. And motivation seems to be the most challenging to manage. When workers lack skills, we can send them to training. When a computer crashes down, we can call the IT department to fix it. But when we observe that people experience some motivation deficiencies, then situation gets complex and it gets complicated to identify what will motivate people. Our textbook offers the motivational framework as shown in slide 6, and this framework shows how motivational process occur. People experience a need deficiency, and so we will search ways to satisfy it. And then from different options of satisfying a need, we will choose one option and then enact on that option, and then we will either experience a reward or punishment based on the option and action done. Afterwards, we will reassess if the action done fully satisfied the need deficiency. Another thing that we may find useful in understanding what motivates people is looking at some historical perspectives on motivation. On slide 7, you will see the 3 historical perspectives of motivation, such as the traditional approach, the human relations approach, and the human resource approach. The traditional approach is also called the scientific management approach. This approach assumes that people are motivated by money. The human relations approach assumes that people want to feel useful and important. That is why in the workplace, managers allow employees to carry some routines with independence. The third approach is the human resource approach, which assumes that the contributions themselves are valuable, and that is why managers encourage participation and engagement, and so they also highlight the contribution of the team members towards organizational goals. Another way of looking at motivation is on the need deficiency and how this causes behavior. There are 3 need-based perspectives on motivation as shown in slide 8. The hierarchy of needs by Abraham Maslow, the ERG theory of Clayton Alderfer, and the dual structure theory of Frederick Herzberg and his associates. On slide 9, you will see the representation of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and this assumes that human needs are arranged according to importance, and that each level must be satisfied before the level above it becomes important. For example, when I was a fresh college graduate, all I wanted was to find a job with a decent salary. As I moved on in my career, I started looking at job security, then later pursuing challenging jobs. However, when I migrated here in the US, I went back to the first level in hierarchy, as my goal was just get a job with a decent salary. Another need-based theory of motivation, as shown in slide 10, is the ERG theory, which E means existence, R means relatedness, and G means growth. This is similar to Maslow's theory in many respects, but one difference is that it suggests that more than one kind of need may motivate a person at the same time. Also, this theory includes satisfaction progression concept and frustration regression concept, which suggests that when a person gets frustrated by trying to satisfy a higher need, the person eventually regresses to the preceding level. Another need-based theory of motivation, which offers valuable insights to managers, is the dual structure theory, as shown in slide 11. In this theory, motivation factors such as achievement, recognition, work, responsibility, and advancement affect one dimension called the satisfaction to no satisfaction dimension. Also, the hygiene factors such as supervision, working conditions, interpersonal relationships, pay, and company policies affect another dimension called dissatisfaction and no dissatisfaction continuum. According to this theory, managers may address the hygiene factors first by eliminating causes of dissatisfaction, then work towards motivational factors. On slide 12, Other need-based perspectives on motivation, which we may find useful in determining what motivates people in organizations, are the needs for achievement, the need for affiliation, and the need for power. Now, let's move on to why people choose certain behavioral options to satisfy needs and how motivation occurs. On slide 13, there are three process-based perspectives on motivation, namely the equity theory, the expectancy theory, and the goal-setting theory. The equity theory focuses on the people's desire to be treated equal and fair. People form perspectives of equity, and when they observe or notice inequity, they are motivated to reduce it. The expectancy theory focuses on how people are motivated by how much they want something and the likelihood of achieving it. And then the goal setting theory focuses on creating specific and challenging goals along with appropriate feedback to contribute to higher and better task performance. So we have answered what motivates people on the need-based perspectives of motivation, why and how motivation occurs on the process-based perspectives. Now, let's move on to how to maintain motivated behavior. On slide 14, there are 4 learning concepts that provide useful insights about motivation: the classical versus cognitive process, the operant conditioning, the social learning, and the organizational behavior modification. The classical conditioning refers to learning that links a conditioned response with an unconditioned stimulus. This is a very simplistic view of learning, thus most theorists tend to look at other views about learning, such as learning is a cognitive process, which means that people are active participants and we use past experiences as a basis for our present behaviors. The operant conditioning, which is also known as the reinforcement theory, assumes that behavior is a function of its consequences. Positive reinforcement focuses on giving rewards, while negative reinforcement focuses on avoidance of unpleasant consequence. How often managers use reinforcement also influences the desired performance outcomes. The social learning, on the other hand, occurs when people observe the behavior of others, recognize the consequence of that behavior, and alter their own behavior as a result. And lastly, the organizational behavior modification is the application of the reinforcement theory and focuses on positive reinforcement. So, people work for different reasons, and we have various goals and objectives to achieve in an organization. We also experience days that we are fully energized to use our full potentials, and then some days that we just want to get our job done. So, to conclude, I will leave you with this question. Given the different perspectives on motivation, what perspective will you consider and use to keep motivating an employee who has been a high performer for a couple of years, and why? Thank you for watching this video.